Blood is the major source of your power in V Rising. Whether it is a brute's blood, a warrior's blood, even a worker's blood, this is going to enhance and modify the way that you play the game. And it can be a little convoluted as to how this process works. So in this video today, we're going to go over how blood quality percentage works, how the bonuses scale with that quality, and then we're going to talk about the individual types of blood within the game to give you an idea of which one's going to maybe make the most sense for a build, or maybe which blood you want to swap into as you swap out your builds, whatever it is. Now, if it's your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. So with that being said, the thresholds, so basically the percentages of blood quality you need to progress through the tiers, because there's 5 tiers of blood. Remember, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in Roman numerals, is 1% for tier 1, 30% for tier 2, 60% for tier 3, 90% for tier 4, and 100% for tier 5. And then the bonuses, so usually your blood says, hey, it's a 10 to 20% bonus based off of the quality. Well, those scale on a different percentage, and it's roughly the same. So basically, you have that bonus triggers at 1%, 30%, 50%, 99%, and then 100%, which will give you the max bonus plus the additional 25. That's all very convoluted if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I will show you everything in this video. I just wanted to give you the down and dirty, the too long didn't watch of this video. So if this is all you wanted to know, please feel free to go ahead and shut the video down and get back to enjoying V Rising on PS5, PC, whatever you're playing it on. Before you head out though, please don't forget to like and or subscribe, comment, whatever it is, if this video did end up helping you, as those things do have a massive impact on my channel. But let's get started here on blood quality and how it works in V Rising. So to start us off, let's talk about our blood quality percentage and what that all means. So when we hover over this, if we're playing on the PC, if we're playing on a PS5, we have to go to tab and go to blood pool. This is where we get that information. On a PS5, I believe it's you press the square button to go here, then right trigger twice to bring you to blood pool. But this information here is everything we need to know about our blood quality, right? Our blood quality can be from 1% to 100%, or you're frail when your blood is just nothing. That will show a little X down here. And this little bulb will also represent the blood quality. As you can see, it's a pure, beautiful bulb, but the murkier and crappier it looks, the lower the blood quality is. But this goes from 0 to 10 liters, and those liters drop out every handful of seconds. I think it's something like every minute you lose a liter or something along those lines. And ultimately, those liters will come down to 0, and you will go to frail before you go all the way down to 0 again, and you die. You can maintain your blood pool and your liters by resting in your crypt. It will freeze your blood as it is and heal you back to full. So if you need to go AFK, need to walk away from the computer for a little bit, go put yourself in the crypt so that it locks your blood. In fact, you should be putting yourself in your crypt every time you log off. Otherwise, people can drag you around. So make sure you do that. Like if you log off in the game world, they can drag you around if you're on a public server. So just know those things. But the important thing is our blood quality. So you can see here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 tiers, right? And those tiers correspond to certain percentages of the blood quality, the purity of your blood quality. So tier 1 over here is at 1%. Tier 2 over here is at 30%. Tier 3, it starts at 60, and Tier 4 finally is at 90%, with Tier 5 happening, of course, at 100%. I'm going to show you information here ripped directly off the V Rising wiki, so you can go ahead and use that link below if you need to kind of read a little bit more about this. So once you have those percentage brackets, you're going to get that bonus. So at let's just say I've got 60% blood quality, then that would mean I would have 15% increased Veil cooldown recovery, 100% chance to crit strike on next physical attack after using a Veil. And that percentage also scales off of the blood quality. So these values here scale at a very similar weight to the blood quality. So if the blood quality is 30, 60, 90, 100, the bonus scaling is at 30, 50, and 99, and then 100. That 99 is the max number here. So at 99% blood quality, this is a 20%, this is a 15%, this is a 30%, This is always on. This is one of the one. There are some that are just kind of on for you, right? 50% chance on critical strike to expose victim's armor, increasing damage taken from all sources by 15% for 4 seconds. Like Brute, for example. Brute has one where it's just going to give you 1 gear level. It doesn't matter what your blood quality is. So there are some blood types, Rogue being one of them, where just simply having the blood type will turn that on for you. So those are nice things to have. Then at level 5, at 100% blood quality, which we have right here, this will go up. So let me show you what an actual practical example of what this looks like, right? So our movement speed increases 8 to 15% with a rogue blood type. The base movement speed in the game is a 4. So we are at a 4.8. And that 4.8, if we look back at blood pool, it's not being increased by 15%. It's 25% increase on 15% to get whatever that total is. So let me see, 25% plus 15% plus 25% is 0.4 increase on it. So basically, you would take that number and add it to whatever this is. So that would give you whatever your max is. And I'm terrible at percentages, but either way that translates into 4.8. If I were just to simply take 4 plus 15%, my handy computer tells me it's a 4.6. The additional 25% brings us up to 4.8. So you can see an actual practical example of this exemplified right here. Other examples are stuff like this. If increase the veil cooldown recovery rate, even if I were to show you this, it wouldn't change no matter what our blood pool is. It always will say 8 seconds, which is kind of annoying here. I think if this is a 100% chance of crit strike on next physical attack after using Veil. I don't think this will show me. Oh, it does. There you go. So we did it, and so you can see that it shows us directly I have that increased crit strike chance because of the rogue blood giving us that 100% chance right there. So you can see the actual practical examples of these. Their intervals are reflected on certain portions of this, right? So our crit strike per chance, which would be 5, because I'm not wearing anything that would increase my critical strike chance, is being increased right now because of this, that 25%. And I know what 25% more of 20 is. It's I got that one in my brain at least. So that gets added on to the 5, right? So that initial chance of critical striking is reflected directly right here because of our blood. And you can see some of these things reflected and some of them not, like I just said before, like for example, that veil recovery rate. So that's how your blood quality works. And that's how the bonuses scale. But let's talk a little bit more about how blood can be advantageous to whatever build you're using. But actually, before we do that real quick, one thing to mention, these breakpoints for the bonuses, like I said, 30, 50, and 99, if you have 80%, it's a specific breakpoint for that percentage to increase. It's not a, hey, it will increase a smaller interval in between those points. So for all intents and purposes, 60% blood is not any better or worse than 89% blood, if you want to think of the actual tier jumping up to level 4. So if you want to look at those bonuses and all those things that you're going to get, all those numbers really mean is, can I modify that blood using things within the game? Because you can increase your servant's blood percentages or your prisoner's blood percentages by using specific items. So using someone who has like a 96% blood, they're already going to be a tier 4. The only difference between a 96 and a 98% is that they're just that much closer to 99%, which is the final breakpoint for the bonus scaling. That's a fact I forgot to bring up, but it's really important here because from everything I've looked up and tested personally, there is no real difference between the intervals in between those blood qualities because the game rounds up for you. So even if there was, it would be tenths of a percent that would always just round up for you if it pushed over to a certain threshold. So it's not going to matter enough to really warrant anything worrying about. Now, one thing I wanted to also talk about before we get into all the different blood types is blood bonuses, either through passives, through stuff like the Vampiric Brew, or even a Blood Moon. This is a multiplicative bonus, not an additive bonus. Meaning, for example, I have 70% Brute. Well, this increases the current blood type by 20%. No, it's not going to make me have 90% brute. It now is going to say that I've got an additional 14%. If you think of it that way, don't think of it as like a raw addition to this. Like if this is a 5% blood type efficiency, it's not going to make this 75. It's going to add an additional 3.5 into the mix. So just know these things with blood type bonuses. I think I have the passive on me right now. Let me see. Boosts the current effect of your current blood type by 8%. This is, again, a multiplicative bonus. So these things will also round up, like I said. So if this puts you to a certain threshold, it would round that into the additional threshold. But these are nice ways to increase your blood quality without actually having to go and find specific high percentage targets out there. And the first blood type I want to talk about is Rogue, since we already have it active. And Rogue is one of the strongest ones that you can get, especially because it is a very damage dealing oriented blood type. You might not have the sustain of a Brute or the durability of a Warrior, but you make up for that with just raw damage potential. A 20% chance to crit strike on weapon attacks is huge. Even if you only have it at the base 10%, it's a real nice increase to the amount of damage you can dish out. Having a non-conditional movement speed buff is also huge. 8 to 15%, being always awesome at the absolute max, but still at 8%, that's a real nice juicy bonus. The next one, though, is probably one of the biggest things that the Rogue blood type offers you, because it offers you for such a large range. Basically, you just need a 60% or higher Rogue blood type to benefit immensely from this. So 15 to 30% increased Veil cooldown recovery. And again, unfortunately, I can't show that being reflected here, but 100% chance to critical strike on next physical attack after using a Veil. If you're using the Illusion or the Chaos Veil, both of them have a Veil scenario that allows you to get 2 uses of this. So I'm going to show you right now. You look in the corner, you'll be able to see the critical strike modifier, because this happens every time we use Veil. So I would be able to jump, hit, and then jump again, and that resets, right? It goes back up to that 5 seconds. So this is a great way to get 2 easy critical strikes out of using the Veil of Chaos. It makes that blood type just absolutely disgusting. But you can still use this with, say, Blood, because Leech will give you 10% of the damage dealt whenever you do damage. So if you crit strike, it does 10% of that crit strike value as health back to you. And remember too, Veil will do 5% of your max health healed back to you, no matter which Veil you're using, any dash that you're using. The next one here is 50% chance on critical strike. So if you're doing 2 critical strikes back to back with your Veil, it's a likelihood of one of them causing this, to expose victim's armor, increasing damage taken from all sources by 15%. This is basically a free cast of this. Condemn, increasing all enemies' damage dealt to them by 15%. So if you're using unholy spells, you stack these 2 things together, and now they're taking 30% damage from you for 5 seconds, because you have that critical strike kicking off that is going to give this expose armor, and you have hopefully the ability to land a condemn on them, and that's going to be a real nice wombo combo. Of course, you can now boost this all together, but definitely Rogue is going to be one you're going to focus on to do a lot of damage. If you're struggling with a boss to get a lot of damage on to push them through to the end, Rogue might be the blood type for you. I think Rogue is a real good blood type also in PvP. It just also depends on the type of weapon setup you have. If you're in melee combat, these things are really good, but you do have to be mindful of what that means. It means you're going to be up close and personal, taking a lot of damage. And all of the benefits of this blood type are geared towards damage. Even though Veil is an active defensive capability, it is at the same time geared towards you getting in or out of combat to do damage in some way, shape, or form. This can be maybe better served if you're using range weapons, which allow you to really get the benefit of these in a long-term engagement. It's all up to you if you're doing PvP, if it's a boss, whatever it is, on how you're going to get the best use out of Rogue. Next up is Brute, probably one of my favorite blood types. This is probably the ultimate PvE blood type. You really just are not going to have to deal with healing because of the massive amount of sustain that this blood type gives you. Just simply having it active, even at 1%, gives you a primary attack life leech that you can add into or stack up with your blood spell abilities that have leech on them, right? Increased primary attack speed and gain 1 gear level. So it doesn't matter what percentage this blood type is, you will always get 1 gear level. I have no gear on that gives me gear level. and I still have 1 gear level just because of this blood pool, or this blood type, which is great. Then a 15 to 30% increased healing received. Heal self for 4% of your victim's health when striking a killing blow. Again, this makes any ability that would heal you give a 15 to 30% additional amount of health dealt to you. So if you're using, and it says any healing received. So this healing gets that bonus. So that is a great capability. But even so, like I said, using stuff from maybe the Illusion School, if you use the spiritual wolves or spectral wolves that heal you, they now will heal you 50 to 30% more. Or anything from the blood tree, it's now going to heal you that much more. Also, this stacks with stuff like Leech, that when you kill something, it gives you more health. So heal self for 4%. Then there's that additional health percentage that you're going to get whenever you kill something that has Leech on it. And lastly, 6% chance per relative health recovered to boost movement speed by 20% and damage of physical attacks by 20%. So the nice thing about this is you just constantly have a movement speed and damage buff on you. And you can stack this up because you're constantly recovering health because of your primary attack life leech. What I really like about Brute though is I primarily use axes and slashers, so this really leans into them. Things that have a very fast attack rate really benefit from the Brute. I think you could even be fine with this with a great sword or a great mace or the whip. And whip is one of my favorite weapons too. But those high attack speeds really mean that you have just tons of life leech coming your way and a good movement speed buff. And on top of it too, you know, the frenzy of the axe. This already gives me a movement speed and a movement, or just movement speed and attack? Yeah, an attack speed buff. So I'm getting just so many benefits that are going active. Even moreover, if I want to couple this with Power Surge from Chaos or Blood Craze from Blood, you just get a lot of benefits from Brute. Brute, I think, is just the best blood type if you're trying to push a hard boss. It's just such an all-around great blood. It's the one that I think majority of players have multiple servants that have high percentages of Brute blood, either as their own servants or people in their prisons. It's just absolute grade A. So if the Brute is the best for PvE, I think that the Warrior is the best for PvP. This has a lot of benefits going for it, and it also does depend on what your role is in a PvP scenario. Do you like playing support? Do you like being up close and personal? I mean, I'm saying this because I like being up close and personal. If you like hanging back, maybe it's Scholar, and we're going to talk about that one in a little bit. But Warrior here is going to increase your physical power. So anything that scales off your physical power is going to get the benefit here from just simply being a warrior. Also, you get increased weapon skill cooldown recovery rate. So those 8-second cooldowns on your weapons, is it 8 seconds? Yeah, 8-second cooldown on your weapons are now going to get that benefit of either 10 to 20% increase on that cooldown recovery. This is really nice, especially if you're using stuff like the Greatsword, which has that really long, well, not really long, not any longer than anything else, but that 8-second cooldown. But those a lot of mobility in the Greatsword is locked to those weapon abilities. Also, a 6 to 12% reduced damage taken, and this is a big one, 25% increased damage when striking enemies at full health. So that's just always active for you. So if you're fighting someone in PvP and they get back to full health through whatever means, or they've come into the fight raw, you have just a big, cool initial shot that you can do into them. The reduced damage taken is nice because it couples with this one. 10% chance to parry an attack, reducing damage taken by 40%. Parrying an attack increases your own damage by 20%. So you can see that, yeah, you don't have the sustain of a Brute, but you have a lot of defensive characteristics built into tiers 3 and tier 4 that are absolutely huge. You're going to mitigate a lot of the damage that's coming your way, either outright or by at least a huge chunk of it. And then on top of it, you're going to increase a lot of damage into yourself. So there's a lot, not into yourself, into the enemy, that can really, really help you out. I think that Warrior is one that I've used a lot, even when I'm fighting hard PvE bosses, because I really love that parry chance. You can hear like a hard clink whenever it goes off, almost in the same sound that the crit strike one for Rogue makes. And you know right then and there, cool, I just mitigated a lot of damage, and I have a small window to do some damage out at a 20% bonus. This can be stacked up, of course, with stuff like Blood Craze, Power Surge, any other thing that's going to give you additional damage. You can just go ahead and add in some additional flavor here with the blood type for Warrior. So a lot of the blood types that we've talked about up to this point are very combat oriented, right? That Rogue, that Warrior, the Brute, all very combat oriented. But the creature blood pool is a little bit different. This is a little bit more geared towards traversing the game world. and it's one of the first blood types you'll get access to. So this one is 3 to 15% movement speed, just a flat bonus all the way around. Not as much as the Rogue. Remember, the Rogue was 8 to 20, I want to say. This is 3 to 15, but it is a tier 1 benefit, so it just gets pretty juicy for you. Then a 10 to 25 increased sun resistance rating, which is really nice. Basically, having creature online while you're going out and just doing some quick searching for other blood types is really nice. You get that blood speed bonus, and you have to worry about sun as much while you're just trying to hunt down other better blood types. Also, you get a nice damage reduction, which is a nice flat reduction to all damage coming your way. And lastly, a 100% increased health regen. It's all very standard. It's nothing crazy. This is the very first blood that you tap into in the game. And on top of it, it's just a really nice calm all blood that you can use for every situation. Maybe you're going to just go do some harvesting. Yeah, you'd probably want to pop into a worker blood, but maybe you have to do harvesting in an annoying location, or you need to go deal with garlic, which again, I would still use worker or garlic potions, but still, you can use this for movement speed and sun resistance. I use creature blood a lot when I am trying to navigate around because, like I said, it's not movement speed that is situational. Mutant blood is situational movement speed. Draculin is situational movement speed. It's just a flat bonus. So this applies to you being in wolf form, you on a horse, you on foot. So this allows you to go on a horse, go into blood hunger, run around, take a look. Oh, hey, that guy's got 90% blood. Let's go ahead and snag him and send him away. I don't need to worry about as much damage as he's doing because I have damage reduction. And as soon as I've sent that person away using one of my stones, cool, my health is starting to regenerate a little bit faster now. It's just got a lot of nice, really, really cool benefits. It's not one you really need to kill yourself over getting at a high percentage. There is a tricky, cool way to get high percentages of creature blood. I don't want to spoil for you, but a hint, it has to do with werewolves, if you can find them. But creature blood is a good one, just like Draculin blood, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. And it is a fun one for finding other bloods. And one of the more interesting bloods is mutant blood. And you're going to probably wonder where you're going to use this, but I can explain it to you. So mutant blood, I don't have a high purity one, sorry, is some interesting stuff. So it has a reduced blood drain rate up to 50%, 25 to 50%. So of course, this just means that the time in which case it takes for your liters of blood to drop per minute or whatever it is a much lower rate. Also increased all resistances by 10 to 25. This is pretty cool here, as you can see. Take Holy, for example. I have a 25% resistance to Holy now, which is cool. I think all of it's like half of that, like fire. So if you have 25%, if you have a 25 here, you can see it reduces damage taken from fire-based attacks by 12.5% and grants you a 12.5% to nullify damage from burn effects. So it helps you with the passive damage, and it helps you with the active damage. Now, blood pool further, 10 to 20% increased movement speed while shapeshifting. That is probably the biggest benefit in my mind to using Mutant. You will find points in the game where you need to go into human form. Human form is tragically slow. I don't have it active right now, right? That 10 to 20%. But this is so slow. This is so slow. And the points in which you need to use this in high amounts are points that are dangerous. If you get discovered, you are in a bad situation. So having mutant blood at a high percentage allows you to move through those areas quicker. Also, in addition to that increased resistance rating also helps out with sun resistance. So when you're trying to move through locations during the middle of the day as a human, this comes in huge advantage. Also, that increased movement speed is going to apply to a wolf, a bear, any of the other forms that you can take in this game. Boom, that increased speed while shape-shifting applies to you. So this does have certain particular situational uses, and those situational uses you will actually use. I've used mutant blood quite a bit when dealing with a specific city. Also, there's a 40% chance to convert the victim to a random mutant when killing them with a bite. So what's kind of cool about this is you can kind of propagate the blood type. Wow, that's kind of a wild statement. But what I mean is you can go ahead and go kill a bunch of low quality crap and have a 40% chance to convert it to a random mutant with a random blood type quality. Or I'm sorry, with a random blood quality of mutant. So you could try to basically increase your blood quality by just simply killing other things and biting them. So it's a cool way to try to propagate mutants, whatever it is you want to do. But you can see that this is a very particular blood type. It's not one I would definitely going to take against a boss. Maybe if I really need those resistances, but I'd rather just go ahead and use any of the resistance potions. There's no boss that I would want the other benefits from outside of that resistance rating, and definitely not on PvP. So here is our mutant. Let's go into two of our last blood types. I lied. We actually have two more blood types after this one. So our next one is Scholar, one of our last probably tried and true combat blood types, because this focuses on the spell power usage of the game. If Warrior increases your physical power, this increases your spell power, with a 10 to 20% increase outright to that. Remember, all of your spells scale off of your spell power as a percentage of it. 85% damage or 175% damage of your spell power. Then an increase to the spell cooldown recovery rate is also absolutely huge. Then you also get a spell life leech. So just across these three alone, and that's not even a high amount, right? That's just 60% to get all those active. You have a spell cooldown recovery, the ability to get health from your spells, and they do more damage. With lastly, a 15% chance to reset spell cooldown on cast. This is the same capability that Illusion has, which gives you that free cast from Phantasm. So you can stack those two things up and basically give yourself tons of casts of illusion spells if you have a lot of Phantasm tripping off with this reset spell cooldown on cast from the actual Scholar blood type. This one is absolutely aces in PvP if you're playing more of a back line supports type style of character, using range weapons and using some of the heals or using some of the defensive capabilities or damage shields in the game. These two things can really work hand in hand. Even if you're playing co-op with friends, maybe you're the character who's using a bow or a crossbow or pistols, hanging out, giving Phantom Aegis to people, using Sanguine Coil or using any of the other spell heals in the game. You're really going to get a huge benefit by combining all those capabilities with the blood type for Scholar. It's an absolute real fun blast way to play. It's kind of like playing like a mid-range Holy Paladin if I wanted to compare things to a World of Warcraft that allows me to kind of heal things but still be up close and personal to do damage. Now, another blood type is Draculin. You'll be able to get this from the Ruins of Mortium, and this has its corresponding 4 tiers. The first tier is a movement speed increase during night, increased damage against enemies below 30% health, increased healing received from Blood Mend, and also grants 1 additional bite charge and heal for 5% of your maximum health when killing an enemy using bite. This is a pretty interesting one, but it's one that I find to be more of an accessory than an outright like, oh man, I gotta have this for a really challenging boss. Having that movement speed during night is really nice, but it's only during night. And the increased damage against enemies below 30% health, I think that really depends on what style of magic you're using. If you're using a lot of blood or you're using a lot of unholy magic, that's really good, right? Because with unholy magic, you're trying to trigger as much stuff as you can with Condemn, which happens when something dies. Condemn weakens things, but also if they die, it summons up a skeleton. But what's also nice is both Blood and Condemn have usually abilities that will give you damage bonuses when they're below 30% health. So this can work in conjunction to actually give you a huge damage increase for that spell below 30%. And also with Blood, whenever you're using Leech will constantly give you health as you're attacking, but it'll give you more health once you kill something. So that can really be an awesome advantage if you're using those two blood types. Honestly though, I'd probably want to go with like Scholar if I was really trying to do a lot of magic damage. The increased healing from Blood Mend is great, but I'm only using Blood Mend in situations when I am out of combat most often. If I'm in combat, I'm probably using a Blood Rose potion or some sort of way to heal myself. And the grants 1 additional bite charge is nice, but it's only beneficial if I'm killing a horde of creatures. Oftentimes bosses will have adds that this is nice to get yourself a really quick 5% heal. And if you get this blood at 100%, that 5% heal is a little bit more, right? So that can be advantageous, but I think overall, Draculin blood is better for more traveling the world or doing any of the rifts in Mortium. And I think that's probably why it was made this way, right? To help you in trying to traverse Mortium to those individual rifts or deal with individual hordes and get your health back in between each interaction within the rift. And the last blood I want to talk about is Worker blood. And it's a pretty straightforward one. I think you kind of know how this is going to work, but still I think it's worth going over. Because the first one is probably the best thing that you would link to use for your worker blood. Increases the resource yield whenever you're attacking a tree, when you're going and taking from even just stuff like this. It increases the amount you get from individual herbs and spices and all sorts of original and extra crispy recipes, but also for minerals. So if you go and attack rocks and everything, you're going to get increased resource yield. Also increased damage against resource objects. So what that means is, if you're using, say, just this hammer, the Sanguine Mace, it's going to do 25% damage to minerals. This is going to help you do additional damage to those minerals. And also you maybe use like a smith's hammer, which does 50% damage to minerals. So having high worker blood, it just kind of benefits those things all the way around, meaning that less hits knock out a mineral vein or whatever resource object it is, so that you can get onto the next resource quicker. You can fill your entire backpack up with a high worker blood type real quickly, and I'll show you why in a sec. But lastly, you have, not lastly, second to last, you have increased mount gallop speed. So when you're on a horse, this is going to allow you to move around quicker. If you're playing on a server that you have not configured, or the server does not have configured the ability to transport, this means if you have iron ore on you, or pretty much any of the minerals, you cannot use a waygate. Or if you're, I think even the blood crystals, you can't use it. Most major resources, you cannot use the waygate. So having worker blood type allows you to navigate the game quicker using a mount. You don't even need to have the dominate mount capability. Just simply jump on a horse. Doesn't matter, any point in the game you can do that. Then lastly, 3% chance to instantly destroy a resource node and trigger a burst of speed. The greatest thing about this is you don't need worker blood to be at 99% to get the benefit of everything. You could really just kind of have it be at 90% just to turn that last one on. It's not an interval, it's just a flat 3%. Meaning that when you go to attack an object, it will just immediately explode. You get all of the resources from it, and you have a quick little burst of speed. It is so huge, and it happens way more often than you think. It's 3%, but you're just holding down left click or holding down R2 when you're playing, so it blows up the resource node, and you move on to the next one even faster. And if you have 100% worker blood, then this has an even higher chance of occurring for you, because I think that goes up to what, like 4.5, whatever it is, and it rounds. It rounds to the closest 10th percentile. So if it goes from 4.55, it's going to go to 4.6. So just know that I said rounding, and I think maybe you think that if I said 4.4, it stays at 4, and if it's at 4.5, it goes to 5. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It goes to the closest 10th percentile, 100th percentile, 10th percentile, 10th percentile. Cool mathematician that I am. But either way, that is your worker blood, and it is extremely useful. You'll use it throughout the entire game, especially when you hit those points you're like, I want to do a big castle remodel. I want to go do a bunch of things. I need a crap ton of stone. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm looking to do a lot of crafting for my servants. I need to make a bunch of armor. Well, I need to go get all the raw resources to make that armor. Let's pop on a worker blood and go to town and go do that. So this is one that you will use throughout the game. You get access to it at the very beginning, and it is invaluable. So always look for a high percentage worker to keep as a servant. To keep them in your prison. But at the same time, remember, worker blood is considered humble appearance when it deals with the what are those things called? The missions. So having a high percentage worker in your servant as one of your servants is great, because you can use them for the humble appearance missions to really push those through and get the high percentage chance of success on those. So I really encourage you to have a good worker blood, as well as a lot of these other ones, but hopefully this gives you a better idea now of how this one's going to benefit you in your playthrough. And at that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of how your blood type works, what those blood qualities really equate to, and how those intervals actually work, what those bonus percentages are. I've gone ahead and linked you to the V-Rising wiki with the blood threshold, so you can just have all that information on tap. It's in the description below. And this should better give you a concept of which bloods you really need at a higher percentage. I think you can fall into a trap of needing 100% blood of everything and one of every single blood type. Definitely do that. I think that is part of the kind of PvE endgame grind, where once you've killed Dracula, what's left to do? Well, go and make sure you have 100% of every blood. Go decorate your castle however the hell you want. There are things to do in the PvE endgame, and I do think that there needs to be a cooler PvE endgame, but I think at the same time, it's a pretty well goddamn condensed game into a really awesome 100+ hour package. So I think that you'll have a lot of fun figuring out how to make these blood types work for your builds, for the kind of character you want to play, for the PvE, the PvP you have in mind, whatever it is. And if you have any comments about blood type saying, hey, you know what? You made a lot of really good points about Scholar, but this is how I actually use it in PvE to a really great example. Or maybe this is how I use Mutant Blood in PvP. I don't know, something cool like that. You probably know more about PvP than I do. But whatever it is, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Always glad to hear any of the things that you guys have to say. Also, too, if there's any other subjects you'd like to know more about in V-Rising, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Happy to help you out and teach you guys more and more about the game. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.